So I'm Joe Thompson from MoCA in North Adams, and Lisa, thanks for the invitation. When she invited us, she said, just tell the truth about how you got started. So I'm going to. I studied a little art history at Williams, including a great course at Zerka's in Zerka's 300 level. But how I really started was I came back to visit a friend after graduating. It was this time of year in 1982. Visited a professor, Tom Krenz. He asked me what I was doing that day. And I'm visiting. He said, I need somebody to install this Robert Morris sculpture that we're installing at the Clark Art Institute lobby. I'm doing a show on drawings. It was a big mirrored piece. It had been tucked away in the cow barn. It was a bit of a mess. The college had lost track of it. He said, so I need somebody to put it back together and install it in the Clark. I did. I started. I cleaned it up, got a truck, put it in there, and it looked good. The Clark then was a very cool gray background. This piece was mirrored with a chrome edge on it, and the back side of it was a kind of warm plywood. Didn't look right to me. Waited around for Tom, got tired of waiting for him finally, and decided to paint it. That's rogue. Yeah. Rogue, exactly. I mean, going rogue and Maverick, it's all about Sarah Palin, isn't it? And I was thinking that, what would be a kind of, oh, you betcha, Sarah Palin kind of, and I thought, plucky, oh, God, you betcha, you gotta be kind of plucky. In this case, it's lucky, because I painted that thing gray. Tom, who's a cool cat, dear friend, hard man to get riled up, 3 inches taller than I am. It was like one of those comic book things where you see the blood going from the top of their head down like that. And he walked into the Clark and he said, what the hell if he couldn't believe it. And literally, I've never seen, his hands started trembling a little bit. I said, yeah, I'm tired of waiting on you. And he said, when Robert Morris comes, and he was going to come that afternoon, he said, when he comes, he said, you get your butt up there to him first, and you explain to him what happened and that you painted the backside of this thing. Okay. Morris came in. He was smoking a cigar. He's a really tough, minimal artist, and he came into the room and looked at the piece and walked out. And he sort of mumbled. He said, "Who painted the backside of it?" And I said, "That was me." He's a good shade of gray. I always meant to do it myself. And so. That was it. Tom hired me as preparator and installation designer. In other words, so that's Palin, plucky, or I would say luck. Luck is number one. Number two is an appetite for risk. It helps a lot. So MoCA was hard to get going. There were ups and downs. And at one point, after Michael Dukakis, who was our patron saint, was replaced by Bill Weld, who was a Republican, kind of brown-shoed Boston patrician guy, we had engaged in a friendly battle with Governor Weld. And at one time he came and visited. We had organized, before the complex had any renovations at all, a show by David Byrne, who you might know as a former head of the Talking Heads. I'd seen a book that David had done. It was called Sacred Ritual, beautiful photographs. I'd never seen an exhibition by him, so I got him on the phone, invited him to North Adams, and he did this installation that went from a small show of photographs into this 10,000 square foot operatic extravaganza, in which he wrote. He got very nervous that people might not like his photographs, speaking of fear, and he said, I'm going to do a soundtrack for it. I said, why are you doing a soundtrack? He said, because I know that I can keep people in the room for 20 minutes if I write music and soundtrack for it, and otherwise I think they're going to come in and look at my pictures and leave. And so he wrote this incredibly profane, raunchy, funny soundtrack for this show of photographs, and it was in an unheated building with leaks and lead paint dripping down. It was horrible. And you went in and you put on these earphones and would go through the exhibition. And one day, Governor Weld showed up. And he made a habit of dropping in, as Jennifer will remember, every now and then he would just stop in and see what the heck we were doing. And he always said, Joe and Jennifer, you need to get jobs. What are you still doing? And this, I'm never going to support this project ever. But he would, so that was what he was saying to us privately. Publicly, he would wave his arms. And anyway, he went into the show full of profanity, images of drug paraphernalia, guns, and listened to this thing for the full 20 minutes, and which surprised me. And he came out and he took them off and said, "So Joe, if the state of Massachusetts were to give you $35 million of taxpayers' money, is this what you would propose doing with it?" And I said, "Well, you know, it would be, we could do it 20 times this big." and you know, we could get rid of the paint wouldn't be peeling down, and there would be bathrooms. And he sort of hooted, and he said, he didn't crack a smile. He said, "Name a song." I said, "What?" He said, "Name any Talking Head song." And I said, "I'm not going to give him Psycho Killer, you know, Air." And he recited all the words of Air. And I said, "Mind." And he, perfect, all the words for Mind. He said, "You can't name a song that David Byrne has written that I don't know." And so he said, and then he thought, well, I think this is when he said, and he said, so this project is just counterintuitive enough to be just interesting enough to work. I think I may change my mind. And so it was a transformative moment driven home by somebody's love of art or music in this case, and I think a little bit of just the quixotic oddity of it all in North Adams, and it moved him. And you realize that all of a sudden you're dealing with a human being with a flexible, even in his case, I think almost frictionless mind that would come through. I knew that we had hope. So luck, maybe it's more luck or an appetite for risk, because that felt risky. And third, I would just say perseverance helps, and a sense of just sticking to a project. And in particular, I have and this, I'm getting to you, Alan, here in just a moment. When you do a project that's new, as my fellow colleagues know, and you ask people to help you on it by giving their time or money, you're essentially taking on a warrant on the future. I mean, I very much understand that in a transactional way. That if somebody gives you money, you take on at the same time an obligation to deliver that, whatever that gold star thing that you've described is going to be. And in Alan's case, Alan was my chairman for 5 years, and not just any 5 years. It was a really pivotal moment in the history of this institution, a time when we would have these very difficult conversations about, you know, what do you do if you can't hold it together? Because it was like hanging on by your fingernails sometime. And then we would go out into the world with Alan, and he just did an amazing job raising funds. And we developed this parade wave together where you keep going out in the world. But it's just very moving for me to be here today at this Fulkerson event, having had the great pleasure of working side by side with somebody who both gave so much, but also in the same time extracted so much from our entire staff and from the rest of the board. When you have somebody of Alan's grace and nobility offering so much to you, you take on a lot. In the flip side of that transaction requires hard work and sort of stick-to-ing it. You simply can't just wave goodbye and say see you later. You have a kind of obligation to finish. So I would say that the greatest joy of leading institutions like that is getting to meet and work with people who provide the resources to make it happen. It's a really great privilege, and particularly so with Alan Fulkerson. So thank you, Alan. Yeah, thanks.